The evening was quiet except for the sound of Jonah's empty fishing net, dragging against the rocks. He had been fishing all day without a single catch. His stomach growled in hunger and his heart ached for his wife, who was waiting at home with nothing to eat. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jonah decided to try one last cast. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a strange sound, a weak, painful cry. He turned toward the riverbank and froze. There, lying and almost dead in the water, was a woman unlike any he'd ever seen. Her golden hair glowed softly and her body shining under the moonlight. But what shocked Jonah most was her tail, glorious and glittering though covered in blood. She was a mermaid and she was dying. Jonah dropped his net and rushed to her side. Her breathing was shallow and an arrow was shot deep in her side. Her eyes widely open as she saw Jonah. "Help me," she whispered. Jonah hesitated, unsure of what to do. But then he saw the fear in her eyes, the pain and the blood pooling around her. "I'll help you," he said softly, lifting her carefully onto the shore. The mermaid had a glowing necklace around her neck as if it were her lifeline. "My name is Serena," she said, her voice trembling. Jonah held her hand, urging her to save her strength, but she shook her head. "I must tell you before it's too late." Jonah sat quietly as Serena began her story. "Once I lived a beautiful life under the sea. My husband, King Dash, and I ruled our kingdom together. He was kind, strong, and loved the people and our daughter Dora more than anything. But fate was cruel. Dash died in a tragic accident, leaving me to protect Dora and our kingdom." Jonah asked curiously, "What happened?" "When Dash died, the throne was given temporarily to his brother, Varun. Varun wanted me to get married to him so he could rule the ocean as our king forever. But I love my husband so much, even after his death I still love him, and I said no to Varun's proposal. He was meant to rule until Dora turned 15, when she would reclaim her crown. But greed consumed Varun. He wanted the throne for himself. He feared Dora's power and saw her as a threat. So he ordered her death." Serena's voice broke as tears rolled down her cheeks. "I discovered his plan and fled with Dora. But he sent his soldiers after us. I was shot while escaping to the surface." Jonah's heart ached for her. "Where's your daughter now?" Serena pointed weakly to the water. "She's hidden, near the rocks. She doesn't know what's happening. She's just a child, too young to understand." Serena's grip on Jonah's hand tightened. "Please," she begged. "Promise me you'll protect my Dora. Keep her safe until she turns 15. Then give her this necklace. It holds her true power. When she wears it, she will remember everything and reclaim her throne. Only then will our kingdom be safe." Jonah hesitated. "But I'm just a fisherman. How can I take care of a mermaid child?" Serena's eyes softened. "You have a kind heart, Jonah. That's why I am giving the future of our kingdom to you, and that's why I'm giving my child to you. Please, don't let Varun win. Don't let my death be in vain, please, Jonah." Jonah swallowed hard. "I promise I will take care of her and she will be our child." Serena smiled faintly, her face full of relief. With her last ounce of strength, she removed the necklace and handed it to Jonah. "Thank you, human with a good heart," she whispered. Then with one final breath, Serena closed her eyes and passed away. Jonah felt a lump in his throat as he laid her gently in the water, her body sinking beneath the waves. A soft glow surrounded her before she disappeared, leaving Jonah alone with her final wish. Jonah turned his attention to the rocks where Serena had pointed. There, hiding in a crevice, was a young mermaid with wide, frightened eyes. Her tail shimmered like her mother's, and she clutched a seashell tightly in her small hands. "Don't be afraid," Jonah said gently. "Your mother sent me." Dora hesitated, then slowly swam toward him. Jonah placed the necklace in his pocket and reached for her. As soon as he touched her tail, it began to glow. Before his eyes, her tail transformed into legs. Dora gasped, confused and scared, but Jonah wrapped her in his jacket. "You'll be safe with me," he promised, lifting her into his arms. Jonah brought Dora home to his wife, Mary. At first, Mary was shocked, but when Jonah told her about Serena's dying wish, she agreed to take Dora in. "She's just a child," Mary said, brushing Dora's hair. "We'll raise her as our own." From the very next day, Jonah's luck began to change. His failing fishing business suddenly flourished. His empty nets were now full of fish. Contracts that had been stalled for months were approved. Jonah and Mary, who had struggled for years, suddenly found themselves wealthy. "It's as if she's a blessing," Mary said one evening watching Dora play by the river. Jonah couldn't disagree. He had promised to take care of Dora, but he often wondered what would happen when he gave her the necklace. Would their fortune disappear? Dora grew up happy and loved in Jonah and Mary's home. But she always felt a strange pull toward the water. She spent hours by the river, singing songs that seemed to flow from her heart. Her voice was so beautiful that people passing by would stop to listen. One day, as Dora was singing, sitting beside the water looking sad, Jonah, sitting on a boat fishing, overheard her and felt a pang of guilt. He had grown to love Dora as his own daughter, but he knew she didn't belong on land. "How will I let her go?" he thought to himself. "It's like I am sending my own child to her death." When Dora was old enough, Jonah and Mary sent her to school. Dora quickly made a friend named Lily, a sweet girl who shared her love for music and nature. But not everyone was kind to Dora. A group of girls led by a snobby girl named Clara often teased her. "You're so weird, Dora," Clara sneered one day. "I saw her stare at the water in the school entrance, always staring at the water like a crazy person." Dora ignored them, but Lily wasn't as strong. One day, Clara and her friends pushed Lily to the ground, scraping her knee badly. Dora rushed to her friend's side, her heart aching for her. "Don't cry," Dora whispered. She placed her hands over Lily's injury, and a strange warmth filled the air. When Dora removed her hands, the scrape was gone. Lily stared at her in shock. "How did you do that?" Dora shook her head, confused. "I don't know." Dora's powers were beginning to awaken, though she didn't understand them. Jonah's promise weighed heavier on him as Dora grew older, and the day of her 15th birthday loomed closer. When Dora turned 15 years old, Jonah watched Dora every day with a heavy heart. She has grown into a smart, beautiful, and kind young woman, but he couldn't shake his fear of letting her go. He thought about Serena's words, her plea to protect Dora and return her to her kingdom when the time was right. But Jonah couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Not just because her presence had changed their lives for the better, but because she was like a daughter to him. Without Dora, will everything go back to how it was before? He often asked himself. What if she goes and never comes back? What if she gets hurt like her mother did? He convinced himself that keeping her with him was the right thing to do. The ocean is dangerous, he thought. It's just a throne. She's better off here, safe with us. One sunny afternoon, Dora sat on a large stone by the river, her favorite spot. The gentle sound of the flowing water always brought her peace. As usual, she began to sing, her voice as clear and enchanting as the wind. Unknowingly to her, someone was listening. Hidden behind some rocks was a young merman, his blue-green tail glinting in the sunlight. He had come to the surface to escape the harsh life of the ocean and had stumbled upon Dora singing. Her voice was so captivating that he forgot to hide, his eyes closing as he let the melody wash over him. Dora noticed him and moved closer to him. She stopped singing, curious about the shining figure near the water. She moved closer to him, her heart pounding. When she stopped in front of him, the merman opened his eyes and gasped. He hadn't realized she had seen him. You're human," he stammered. "And you're a merman," Dora replied with a smile. The merman was too startled to swim away. Instead, he introduced himself. "I'm Kai. What's your name?" "I'm Dora," she said. Kai tilted his head, studying her. "What's it like living as a human?" he asked. Dora sat down on the stone and smiled warmly. "It's wonderful. My parents are kind and loving. I'm lucky to have them." Kai's expression darkened. "You're lucky," he said softly. "I wish I could live in your world. Down here in the ocean, it's like living in a nightmare." Kai began to tell Dora stories of his life under the sea. "When I was a boy, we had a good king," he said. "The ocean was peaceful and everyone was happy. The king had a beautiful wife and a young daughter. But one day the king died and everything changed." Dora leaned closer, intrigued. "What happened?" "The throne was given to the king's brother, Varun," Kai continued. "He was supposed to rule until the princess was old enough to take over. But then the queen and the princess disappeared." "Disappeared?" Dora repeated, her eyes wide. Kai nodded, his voice heavy with sadness. "The whole kingdom was worried. The queen's body was later found, but the princess was never seen again. Varun denied knowing what happened, but people didn't believe him. He ordered his guards to search for her, but no one ever found her." He paused, his face troubled. "Later, the guards told us that a shark had eaten the princess. Varun seemed at peace after that, but he became cruel. He punishes us for no reason, people are suffering. And he forces the young mermen to fight in an impossible battles. That's why I come here, to think and chill." Dora's eyes filled with tears. "Poor princess," she whispered, her heart aching for the girl she didn't realize was herself. She must have been so scared. Kai nodded. I think about her often. If she were alive, maybe she could bring peace back to our kingdom. The sun was beginning to set and Kai stood up. I must go now, Dora. If I stay too long, my family will worry. Will you come back? Dora asked. Kai smiled. I'll meet you here again tomorrow. They said their goodbyes and Dora watched as Kai disappeared into the water. That night she dreamed of the ocean. She saw a grand palace, a kind king, and a little girl with a glowing necklace. But when she woke up, she told herself it was just the story Kai had told her. The next morning, Dora woke to the sound of her father screaming. She rushed to his room, finding him sitting up in bed, his face unhappy and drenched in sweat. Dad, what's wrong? She asked, sitting beside him. You've been yelling in your sleep these past few days. Tell me what's happening. Jonah hesitated, but he could see the worry in Dora's eyes. He sighed deeply and motioned for her to sit down. Dora, it's time I tell you the truth. Dora's heart raced. The truth? What do you mean? Jonah looked at her, his eyes filled with guilt. For a year now I've been dreaming of your mother. She comes to me every night, reminding me of the promise I made to her. My mother? Dora asked, confused. But Mom is in the kitchen. She's always here. Jonah shook his head. Not Mary, Dora. Your real mother. Serena, the mermaid who saved you and gave her life to protect you. Dora's world seemed to tilt. What are you saying, Dad? Jonah began to tell her everything. He spoke of the stormy night he found Serena, the dying wish she made, and how he had promised to take care of Dora and return her to her kingdom when the time was right. But I was scared, Jonah admitted, his voice shaking. Scared of losing you, of losing everything we've gained since you came into our lives. I let my fear and greed keep you here. No. I don't know if I can let you go. Tears filled Dora's eyes as Jonah reached into a drawer and pulled out the glowing necklace. This belonged to your mother, he said, placing it in her hand. She wanted you to have it. Dora stared at the necklace, her mind racing. Everything Kai had told her, the dreams she'd had, it all started to make sense. Dad, she whispered, I think I'm the Princess Kai the merman I met yesterday talked about. Jonah looked at her with sorrowful eyes. You're Dora. But I couldn't bear to lose you. Dora hugged him tightly, her heart breaking for the man who had loved her as his own. You'll never lose me, Dad, she said softly. But I think it's time I find out who I really am. Kai said people down there are suffering. I was wishing to help them in my dream, but I couldn't. Waking up to this news makes it feel there is hope for them.